Hi there, it's Basic Folk Time. I'm Cindy. You know what you're listening to. This is where we hear honest and authentic conversations with folk musicians. They could be under the radar folk musicians, or you could be like a super duper folk nerd like me and know who all these people are. Either way, glad you're here because we have a great guest today on Basic Folk. Her name is Nora Jane Struthers. She is extremely well-spoken, very talented. She plays with her band, The Party Line, Nora Jane Struthers and The Party Line. She is originally from New Jersey and has just had an incredible life story, which we get to all of the details in her life. You know, she started off playing bluegrass with her father, and then when she was younger, she was diagnosed with dyslexia, and then she had issues with infertility, and she's like my hero. She's so awesome. She's very fun to talk to. It was kind of like it was, very easy to talk to. I think that you're gonna like this. She's like the first extrovert we've had on Basic Folk, which is exciting for me. Her latest album, Champion, was released last year, and we're gonna hear the title track from her 2017 album, Champion, and then get to our conversation with Nora Jane Struthers on Basic Folk.
There's a light out in your hallway, kettle screaming on the stove, dogs are barking at the back door, bathroom tiles are black with mold, the babies all are sleeping, dreaming you're 16. Back when life was books and horses, and daddy's fiddle on TV. I will be your champion. Fly your banner in the sun. City streets at dawn are glistening, filthy water, rainbow shine. You're tucked up in your apartment, separated from the grind. No one comes over for dinner, your little family's all you need. Still it's hard sometimes to figure, feeling so lonely and so clean. I will be your champion. Fly your banner in the sun. Taste your
Okay, here we go. Thank you so much for talking to me.
My pleasure.
You grew up in New Jersey,
I did.
which you make this really funny joke on stage about how it's the bluegrass hotbed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Country and bluegrass music hotbed, New
But
Jersey.
what was it really?
It was not a country music hotbed or bluegrass. Yeah, I grew up playing bluegrass with my dad. And when I was a teenager, I started going down south to these fiddlers conventions, and I discovered the, beauty of a musical community, really, for the first time. And before that, it was just like me and my dad playing these old songs in our house. Nobody else in my town was playing bluegrass. Nobody else in my region was playing bluegrass. And I was like, definitely felt a little weird that was something that I was into. But I mean, not that there aren't people in New Jersey that play. Of course there are. Like Tony Trishka lives there, and like Railroad Earth is from there, and there are humans in New Jersey that play bluegrass. But it's just not a cultural norm,
Sure.
the way it is in other places.
What was it like when you first discovered other bluegrass communities, and were you even able to put a word to what it was that was happening?
No, I think it probably took a while to be able to like frame that. I mean, I started going down south when I was like 18 to the Fiddlers Convention in Galax, Virginia, and I've been going ever since then. I go every year, and it's like a second little family of these people that you like camp out with for a whole week and have songs that you like only sing with this one person who lives in North Carolina, and y'all meet up in Virginia for this festival, and that's the only time you sing that song, you know? And I love that. I love that, this like bizarre extended family.
That's such a great way to put it. Like, you know, you only sing this one song with this one person. It's like your summer camp friends that you have like the inside
jokes with. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I really love the origin of your name, Nora Jane. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. My parents were hippies, and they named me after Jane Austen. They were educated hippies, and which I love. I love being named after her. What a great namesake. And also after this TV show, Nick and Nora Charles, the Thin Man series, and that's where the Nora came from. And I'm like not actually super familiar with that. It used to be a radio. It was like a radio drama before it was a TV show, which is kind of cool, which I found out after I read my own Wikipedia page and then clicked on the link.
Did you like your name growing up? I hated my name.
I did like my name. And I don't want to get out of order in your questioning, but I'm pregnant with a baby girl right now, and I'm like thinking about what to name her, and got some really beautiful family names that I would love to use, but they're like in the top 10 most used baby names of 2018. And when I was a kid, I loved being the only Nora in my school, you know? It was just like, I'm the Nora, you know? I get to... And so at home, I'm Jane, and at school, I was Nora. It's all very confusing. There's like and then now I'm Nora Jane, so...
There you go. Do you have... your dad is still around, your mom's still around? Mm-hmm. Do you... obviously, they're very good at naming. What's your sister's name?
My sister's name is Abigail Laurel.
My God.
I know. She was named after Abigail Adams.
Wow.
I know.
Oh, man, what a badass.
I know.
Have you asked your parents for any advice on baby names?
I have a little bit. My mom keeps texting me with these like obscure family names that, I mean, they're not obscure names. They're just like obscure family members, you know, like your dad's great aunt was Louisa and we like that name. And I'm like, okay, you know, I like the name Louisa, but I think I don't know.
Is it, well, Louisa May Alcott, Little Women.
There you go.
She should have opened with that.
She should have opened with that.
Yeah.
I needed to connect to it more, you know?
Also, when you were a kid, you were diagnosed with dyslexia.
True.
How did that affect you, and how did you overcome it? Or do you overcome dyslexia?
I think you do overcome it. I mean, I think you learn how to deal with it. And in my case, it just like, I remember, like, I really clearly remember being like in elementary school after having been diagnosed with this, and like just thinking like, man, like I know I'm not stupid. Like I know that I'm not stupid. Like I had to go to some like special classes and stuff, and they didn't make me like feel bad to go to those or anything. But I just had this thing where I was like, I know I'm a smart person. I just need to figure out how to get that out of myself and into the world. That's what it felt like. I felt like there was a barrier between the smartness that was in me and its ability to interact with the world.
That's really impressive. Because how old were you when you were?
I was probably like 6 when I was thinking about that, and so I just worked really hard all the time. I just like did hours and hours and hours of practice for everything that really shaped greatly who I am, I think, and I think also like having a quote unquote disability is a positive thing for anyone, because then you can it gives you an outlet to empathize with people who are different, you know, than you, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, sets you up for success, for all sorts of adversity that you face.
Yeah, give me grit.
So let's talk about your dad. You said you played music with your dad. He's a banjo and a guitar player, and he must have had an enormous influence on you as a musician. Do you have early memories of him? What are your earliest memories of him playing music? And did you always want to play because of him?
I think of my voice as my primary instrument, really. And I don't remember like the first time I ever sang with him, because I feel like I've always, like, as long as I've been talking, I've been singing with him. That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And yeah, I think some of my earliest memories of him playing were like he would bring his guitar into my room and sing me lullabies. The main lullaby that he would sing me is this old song called Hobo's Lullaby, it was written by Goebel Reeves. It's like a Depression era song about like, hobos hopping trains and the trains singing them to sleep. It didn't occur to me until I was like older that is a hilarious song to sing to your child. You know?
Yeah. Not setting them up for success.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But I'm going to sing it to my kids, so whatever.
Great. Well, what kind of dad was he? Like, what kind of guy is he?
He is and was incredibly gentle and mild-mannered, like not pushy in any way, you know, just like sweet and kind and smart, super smart, you know, just great man.
You're in a band with your dad called the Dirt Road Sweethearts.
Singular, Dirt Road Sweetheart.
Sweetheart. Sorry. What's it like to be in a band with your dad versus with the party line?
Well, the band with my dad it's just me and my dad. So it's
a duet.
The father-daughter duo.
Yeah.
That was the incarnation that I first started gigging with. So like my dad and I, when I was in college and just after college, started playing these like folk halls in New Jersey and dive bars in Brooklyn as this father-daughter duo. And it was like really good experience for me, of course.
Was he booking the shows or were you?
No, I was like, yeah, I mean, we didn't get paid, you know, so this wasn't like a paid situation. It was like, there's this place down in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey called the Albert Music Hall. And it's like all these very sweet octogenarians come out like every Saturday night or
80-year-olds.
Every other. Yeah.
Good word.
Yeah, but probably some younger folks too. Probably some older folks too. They just like, it's this big hall and there's like you play like 3 songs or something and there's a bunch of different people that come and it's a chance to get in front of a large audience and like gain a little experience. And then the dive bars in Brooklyn, I would book those, but I mean, yeah, we didn't make any money, but it, you know, super fun. And the main, I think that the thing, you know, I think that close harmony is one of life's great joys, and that singing with my dad is like, you know, in the party line, my husband Joe Overton is in my band. He's the banjo player, banjo, fiddle, pedal steel. My dad and Joe are the only 2 people that I've ever sung with. I think this is true. Who I don't have to change how I sing to just have it blend perfectly. You know, and they don't change how they sing. It's just natural. Like there's no like adapting tone or changing vowel shapes or anything. It's just like you just sing and it lines up like a laser. And it's like gives you that buzzy thing that I love so much. And it's the best thing ever.
Joe also seems to be a pretty gentle guy. Does he share a lot of qualities with your dad?
He sure does. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's so funny that I married a banjo player.
What a cliche.
I know. it's a little much, honestly.
So it's pretty clear how your dad, like his relationship to music, but what about your mom and your sister?
Totally. Yeah. They my sister used to sing with us with me and my dad not with me and my dad, like my sister, my dad and I all used to sing together. She pursued other things. She was like a really talented visual artist. And I think for me, being dyslexic had a lot to do with my gravitating towards music because I'm such an oral learner. Like my best friend used to like read me my history textbook over the phone when I was in high school because that's how I can like absorb information is when I hear it. If I'm like reading it, it's a lot harder for me to remember stuff, you know? And so music is just like the easiest way for me to interact with the world, I think. So my sister, like, you know, has other talents and just sort of went on and did other things, but she had a huge influence on me musically because she's 6 years older than me and was like totally into grunge and got me into Pearl Jam and Nirvana and REM and Tori Amos.
Yeah.
Speaking of, one of my favorite experiences in life was she went to college up at Wesleyan University in Connecticut. And when I was in high school, I went up to visit her for a weekend, and we went to a Tori Amos concert in Providence, and we were like in the 3rd row. It was fantastic.
Whoa. I was gonna say that it's pretty lucky that you had a sister who is the age that she is because you kind of were a teenager in a very weird time for music in the late 90s, early 2000s. So if you didn't have her, like your mainstream music might be like NSYNC and Britney Spears.
That's possible.
Yeah. But you say you were listening to grunge and Tori Amos. And I've read that style of music also informs your musicality. Is that true?
I think it does. I hope it does.
Do you have any other details you can share about that? Because I'm curious too, because there is something about your music that goes beyond the roots world.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with my band that I have now, I mean, I've had the same band for almost 5 years, and when I added electric guitar with Josh Vanna, it just all of a sudden felt like, oh yeah, this is the sound that I want. Like before, like everything that I was doing acoustically before electric guitar, I really liked it, but it wasn't the thing. It wasn't like when I play with my band now, I feel like there's like light shooting out of my sternum. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like the thing that I want to be doing. So, and it's not just the electric guitar. I mean, I think that like those like grunge bands, their songwriting oftentimes like had elements of storytelling in it, which like there's not a lot of stories in sync.
Yeah, no,
stuff.
There's not. No.
Well, I haven't listened to all that much of it, so maybe there is.
There's some pretty sweet dance moves.
Yeah,
that come along with that.
Maybe there is,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't really know. Do you? I mean, can you talk about it? What do you hear?
So I was reading about somebody was reviewing your record and they brought that up that there's this, you're interested in grunge and all this kind of like 90s stuff, and then they listed a bunch of music, like 3 musicians, and one of them was Neil Young, that your music was reminiscent of. And it was like, you were like, I've never listened to them, ever, And who Neil Young really influenced a lot is Pearl Jam.
There you go. I mean, for the record, I have listened to Neil Young now, but as a kid, Neil Young was not a part of my... I think that was my answer there. It was like, that's not a part of my, like, history.
Oh, okay.
I don't want people out there thinking I haven't listened to Neil Young. That would be bad.
Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with the guitar in general? I watched this video of you going through a vintage store, and like a vintage clothing store and a guitar store, and there was a room of electric guitars, and you're like, these guitars are so beautiful, but I would never play them. I'm an acoustic. I play acoustic. So
I do play electric guitar actually in my band now.
Yeah, that was a few years ago.
Yeah. I'm still not like, I feel if I'm being totally honest, which like, why not? I feel a little bit like an imposter when I'm playing the electric guitar because I like haven't studied it. I don't feel like I feel like kind of okay about it now because I've played it enough that like what I'm like, yeah, I like this. I like this tone, I can like be like, oh no, that's too dark, or this is too bright, or whatever. But I don't get that into the pedals. You know what I mean? I like my electric guitar player is a genius, and
he's
like
really good.
He's so good, and like I kind of, I lean on him a little bit for taste feedback, no pun intended, and I just like acoustic music is like that's what I grew up with, and it's just it's the bedrock for me. So I'm always going to be more comfortable playing an acoustic than an electric. I've been thinking about like what I should do in like the month before my baby comes, and if I should just hammer down and like learn how to shred some electric guitar because I won't have any time to do it after the baby comes, But I don't know if I'm going to do it.
What kind of shredding would you go for? Would you go for like a crazy horse type of situation, or would you be more like Mark Knopfler?
Or I would probably go more the like Sister Rosetta Tharpe route.
Yeah, I should name some female guitarists.
No, not because she's a woman, but just because it's like, it's something that I feel like is attainable for me. Not that she's not a badass, because she totally is, but I get it. I like feel the way that she plays the electric guitar is very rhythmic, and as I'm like mostly a rhythm player, and like the way she plays her leads is very rhythmic, and so that I feel like I can do that.
What's that line about her? They say rock and roll was invented by a queer black woman.
Was she queer?
I think so.
I didn't even know that. That's awesome. Yeah, she was just a total hoss. I love her.
I'm very impressed with your vocabulary. which makes sense. You went to NYU and you got an English degree. Did you always love words and writing, and what has been your connection to, because you, even in this conversation, you've thrown down some pretty awesome words.
Oh, great. Good. That's good. Sometimes I feel like you know what it is that my mother-in-law has the most amazing vocabulary. And when she teaches history at Middle Tennessee State University, she just uses amazing words all the time. And I feel like
You need to step it up.
I feel like I need to step it up. But, honestly, my mom and dad both were American studies majors and English majors and have beautiful vocabularies and always spoke to my sister and I with their fullest vocabulary, which I think is, the right thing to do when you're raising kids, probably, so they can learn all the words. I think the real beauty of language is in its, not to show off, but to more accurately communicate whatever it is you're trying to say.
Yeah, I never feel like when reading quotes from you and you throw out a really lovely word, I never feel like, oh, she's just using that word. It's just because she knows it.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. I hope that continues to be the case.
You were an English teacher?
Yep. I taught high school English in Brooklyn for 3 years.
Wow. And then you transitioned into being a professional musician. How did that go for you? Was it completely frightening just to leave your job?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't know if you've heard, but teaching is really hard.
Oh yeah, both my parents were teachers.
Yeah, it's hard. And it's hard because, you care about it so much and you take the work home with you and I felt like I didn't have any creative energy left at the end of the day for music when I was teaching. I just because you're creating all day long. And when I finally decided okay, I've always wanted to be a musician. I see that it is possible to be a musician. I need to try this before I'm married and before I have attachments. I was 24. I was recently single, had no kids. And I was like, this is the moment. Do it now or you're not going to do it. And the hardest part of it, honestly, was that my parents had just given so much to me to like you said, I went to NYU. That is an expensive school, and to have these people who have just invested so much time, love, money in helping me create a life for myself that I wanted, and to be like, just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go be poor for a while. And I asked him, I was like, Mom, I was particularly weird. I thought my dad would understand a little more because he's, shares this love of playing music with me. And I feel bad. I sort of glossed over my mom in the question that you asked earlier about her musical influence. Can I just say something about that real quick?
Let's take it back.
I don't want to leave my mom out. My mom is very important to me. She, lots and lots of jazz influence, lots of Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald, and she loves Frank Sinatra. Gotta love Sinatra, and lots of Broadway.
I can
stuff.
Kind of hear that in your singing sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, I've been what is that? Where does that come from? The line in Champion, which is my favorite line on the record, it's not the whole line, but when you say back when life was books and horses. I love that line.
Oh, that does sound like Sinatra.
Yeah, the way that you sing it sounds really
that is hilarious.
Soulful, jazzy,
That is so funny. That kind of blew my mind. I can hear Sinatra singing that. Back when life was books and horses. Yeah, I don't know.
I would love to hear him sing that.
Me too.
Too bad. It's not going to work.
Okay, but anyway, Mom had lots of influence on me. And so when I was making the transition from teacher to musician, I was a little more worried about how she was going to take it because she didn't share this playing music experience love. And she was just amazing about it. She was like, I went to her and I was like, Mom, is it okay if I go from being middle class to being not, to being blue collar for a while? And she was like, well, honey, don't you think if you don't do this, you're just always going to regret it? I was like, Yes. That is the thing. That's exactly the thing. So, yeah, I felt incredibly supported and
That's great.
lucky.
Yeah, and so you told me what kind of person your dad is. What kind of person is your mom?
Oh, she's man, she was like growing up, she was just like the best mom ever. As a person, she's I think she and I are pretty similar. We like having plans and we like having schedules, you know? And
Control.
yeah, control is a good thing, you know? I think to a certain extent, definitely. I mean, I think we each are flexible in different ways. I don't think we're flexible in the same way, but I think that we like control in the same way, which is funny.
Okay, let's talk about what it's like to be a woman in music.
Oh,
You excited about this?
I can't wait.
Okay, great. So
It's total bullshit. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
okay, so formerly you used to wear vintage dresses on
I
stage.
did.
Very beautiful. Now you dress more kind of like
Dude.
yeah, like a like you
Yeah.
like LL Bean or Madewell or
Yeah.
you dress like a modern woman now. I was looking up all these like wonderful outfits and getting ready to talk about this vintage interest you have, and then I'm like, wait a minute, her press pictures recently, she's
Yeah.
just like wearing jeans and t-shirts and stuff.
Pretty big shift.
Yeah. What is that about?
So that's about a lot. That's about a lot of stuff, Cindy. I started wearing the vintage dresses when I was performing with my dad because we were performing like a bunch of songs from the 1950s, you know, and it just felt like, hey, like this, like one, vintage dresses at that time were like not super, this was before Mad Men, you know, so they were like not that in vogue, and I could like get them super cheap at thrift stores, and they were beautiful and they fit me like a glove, and it was like, this is awesome. Like I can get this gorgeous dress for like $30 and it like looks great on stage, and my dad can put his tie to match it, and like it fits the music. When I moved to Nashville and I started writing songs and putting out records and touring, I was still in that sort of acoustic, all my songs were these narrative story songs that I like to think are a little bit timeless, you know, like they could be sung from a woman, you know, living in the 40s or 50s or 30s or whatever. The sort of like form following content thing. I do like form following content. That's like a theme in my writing. That's in my songwriting, and also in performance. I think the shift happened. I stopped wearing dresses after my record Carnival, which I put out in 2013, because I fell in love with my husband, and like, he was not my husband then, but I like had this like massive like breakthrough, you know, of falling in love and writing all these songs about my experience in my life. And it didn't feel at all right to wear a vintage dress and sing about my experience in my life, because it just didn't match, you know? So that's like part of it. And then the other part is just that, like, you know, I think those dresses are part of a social construct and a projection, you know, like a performance of self, you know, of a performance of identity that like does not jive with how I want to be viewed in the world. You know, I don't really want to objectify myself so much. And that's something that like is a bummer. I'm a 5'9", naturally blonde haired, blue eyed white woman. So like I like occupy the physical form of power in a lot of ways, you know, and like it's expected of me to show off my physical form in this particular way in this industry. And like,
Are you talking kind of like about like a male gaze?
it's not just a male gaze. I mean, it's because the patriarchy affects everybody. You know, I mean, women and men both expect to see women on stage with makeup on. I mean, I wear makeup on stage, so that's not even it. But just like women and men both will look at a woman's body on stage and make judgments about what she's wearing, how she looks, you know, in a way that doesn't happen for men. And like that pisses me off and it makes me not want to play into that. And so, but I also like, I don't know. It's really funny. Like I used to, when I put out the album Wake, I was like I still really cared about how I looked on stage. I was still like, I was trying to craft a new image. I was like over the vintage dress thing, trying to craft like, okay, well, if I'm not going to wear vintage dresses, what am I going to wear? How am I going to present myself? And like now I just don't care, man. Like it is so not about that for me. And like, I think that's a bad thing for my career, but I think it's a good thing for the world. And so, and it's a good thing for me. Like I used to, like on that, when we released the album Wake in 2015, and I was thinking about this just like today, because I would wear like a fair amount of makeup, like lots of like heavy eyeliner and like maybe foundation, which I don't ever wear now. And
Yeah, I saw a video of you wearing eyeliner and I was like, what?
yeah, well, I still wear eyeliner sometimes, but like it felt like I had to.
Yeah.
It felt like, and it felt like if I didn't show up to the venue already with this makeup on, I got treated very differently by the sound men, by the promoters. Well, it's a power thing. Like if I look maximum beautiful, I have more power.
Wow.
And if I don't look maximum beautiful, I have less power. And so it's up to me. It's up to me how I want to leverage that. Wow. You know?
That was a great answer. And I feel like it kind of like clears up a lot of things for me about your experience of what it's like to be a woman in the music industry. So I don't feel like I have to ask you any specific questions. So let's talk about writing.
Okay.
You mostly write songs on your own.
I do.
Do you ever have any feelings of doubt?
For my first couple records, I would sort of like edit as I wrote. Like I wouldn't like move on if I wasn't happy with a previous line or something, which was like so kind of intense, you know? And now I am just way more chilled out. I think it's part of being older. It's part of living in the South longer. Often I am writing a song and I'm like, this feels like a piece of shit to me, but I know that if I finish it, I might listen to it in 2 days and really like it, you know? And that happens all the time. And it's just like, I think what it is just suspending judgment in the moment of creation. And like, as I get older, I get better at doing that.
Let me sum up this pretty quickly, then we can get to my real question. So you started writing out linear narrative story songs, which were they took a lot of influence from traditional folk songs, story songs about other people, places, yourself in those narratives as well. But with your 2015 album Wake, you became more vulnerable and personal, and that was due to falling in love with Joe, your husband. And then you say Champion, your latest album, is a marriage of your two writing styles. And correct?
I think so.
All right, great. In writing, you say you're presenting your authentic self in the songs, and that when you're about to write, you need time to be yourself and also time to observe yourself. And that there's a switch between observing oneself and just being oneself. Living your life sounds easy, but then you're like, all right, time to observe. Like, do you put on a cat or like a special observation hat or something?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I mean, it can be challenging. And sometimes, you know, it feels like we recorded the album in like August 2016 or something. So from August 2016 to January 2018, I didn't really write much. Yeah, I mean, during that time, I just had a number of really transformative experiences that was pretty easy to reflect on. I'm finding myself in this place now where like I'm running out of things to reflect on.
Oh.
and I don't have enough songs for a record, so I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Pretty sure you're gonna have some things to reflect on.
Yeah, that's
Pretty
true.
soon.
Pretty soon.
Speaking of that, we're at the part of the interview where we talk about fertility.
Ooh.
Yes. So Champion, home and family are themes that are revisited. Your relationship with Joe, your relationship with your family and friends near and far, and also the challenge that you and Joe had with infertility. Is it possible to talk a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, I can talk about that journey just in general.
Yeah. I didn't know, like, what is
Yeah.
appropriate to ask and what's not.
No, yeah, that's all good. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much. It's hard for me to know exactly where to take it. But, you know, I've known since I was 18 that I would very likely not be able to have biological children. I have a condition called premature ovarian failure, also known as primary ovarian insufficiency, which is basically just a catch-all that's like, hey, your ovaries stopped working and you're not of menopause age. So why is that? And like, they don't know why. And it's pretty rare for it to happen like under the age of 30. So that when I was 18 and it happened, it was,
Where did you get ill or something?
I just stopped having periods.
Oh.
Yeah. I just like straight up stopped menstruating and like started having hot flashes and night sweats and like these menopausal symptoms. And yeah, it was nuts. And it was interesting. And so I went on hormone replacement therapy and I'd been on it ever since. That was really interesting. And I get the sense that you're interested in what it means to be a woman in the society and in also, you know, in the music business and whatever. But it was very strange to be 18 and like know that I was probably not gonna be able to have kids. Cause like at that, when you're 18, like all you're thinking about is like, okay, definitely don't want to get pregnant. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and then to be like, oh wait, I can't get pregnant like ever, you know? And then it made dating super weird because whoever you date, you have to be like, and just so you know, I can't, you know, to like know that in advance is just like such a bombshell.
Yeah.
And such a strange, and then like, you know, there's all kinds of stuff in there. Joe and I got together and we were friends for years before we got together. And so he knew about my situation or my condition or whatever you want to call it. And he was just always loving and supportive and sweet. And, I just feel so lucky to have found someone who, because I mean that can be a deal breaker for people. I think. I mean, you know, maybe it's not a deal breaker. I think it is for some people if you can't.
Well, if it's the thing for you,
Yeah.
like obviously you're gonna think like this person doesn't want me because of this. Like I feel
Right.
like doesn't everybody have that? Like, oh, this person that I like won't like me because I'm whatever.
Because I'm
you know?
yeah.
And that's a deal breaker. You know.
Maybe, or maybe this is like an actual deal breaker for people.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a thing.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a little more of like on the piece of paper of deal breakers. It's like, you know, top 3 probably. Like
Right.
Can't have kids. Ooh, that's pretty major. Yeah, I mean he's just been wonderful always, and so you know we got married, and then we knew we wanted to figure out how to have a family, and there were some really. Yeah, it was just a crazy. I mean, the thing about my condition is that 5 to 10% of women with premature ovarian failure will just spontaneously ovulate and get pregnant and have a healthy baby. So 5 to 10% is like a pretty big percentage. Like that's like 1 in 10 women potentially with my condition. And so I felt like I needed to explore like a natural medicine path and like try and just give my body every possible opportunity to like heal itself before I went and did some crazy science stuff. So we went over to London and saw this traditional Chinese medicine doctor who specializes in infertility, and did acupuncture and did all, you know, these crazy Chinese herbal tea, you know, medicine tea things. And that was so interesting. And like, I felt some really fascinating changes in my body, but it ended up not working. And I think it totally could have worked. I think it just didn't, you know. The journey for me has been pretty immense. Yeah, I think it's kind of impossible for someone who is able to have their own children to understand it, because it's like you deal with like the grief for the loss of all these potential futures and children. And you deal with grief for the loss of like, oh, I can't bring my parents with me into my future. Like my parents are going to die and like my children will not connect me to them, you know? So there's like just layer after layer of things to process and make peace with if you can.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it was tough. It was a tough year. But I finally ended up in a place where I had, you know, the other thing is I was watching, oh my God, I was watching The Handmaid's Tale, like at the time when we were like shopping for donor clinics.
That's a perfect show to watch.
For anyone out there struggling with infertility, do not watch that show, man. I mean, it's great. And in the book is beautiful. Claire Danes narrates the audiobook.
Oh, wow.
And it's just beautifully written. It's so good. I was such a glutton for punishment. I watched the whole show and then I listened to the audiobook. But yeah, I like finally got to this place where I like realized that the woman who was going to donate her eggs so that I could have children, I have to think of her as like a best friend. You know, I, like for a while it was like this, you know, sort of competitive feeling of like, I have to let this other woman like help make me a woman, you know, because that's like part of our society is that like you're not a woman until you're a mother a little bit, you know. I mean, it's not totally there, but it's a little bit there. Eventually I like found my way to this place where I just am like so grateful and happy and excited to get to experience pregnancy, you know, via a donor egg cycle. It's just amazing. It's totally amazing. And it's what's really interesting, and since we're talking about music and this, is that it changes how I interact with my own songs.
Really?
As I perform them. Like the song Belief is like the on Champion is like the main song. I feel like that song is like the bedrock of the record. And because I was like trying so hard. I mean, the chorus is, there's a line between hope and belief. You've got to choose a side with your heart, with your mind. And that song, verse 1 is about fertility. Verse 2 is about dyslexia. You're just going to love listening to that song now. Anyway.
Can we stop and listen to it real quick?
Sure. But not really, right?
Yeah, no.
Great. But yeah, so like that song, you know, when I wrote it, it was about me like wanting desperately to believe that my body could heal itself and not just hope, because I felt like, you know, there's like this mind-body connection thing, which I think is real. I don't know if it's real or not. I hear it's real, where you can like kind of will yourself into whatever, which is like both positive and also real tough, because if it doesn't work, it's almost like, well, you didn't try hard enough. But anyway, so that song used to be about, for me, it used to be about like trying so desperately and wanting desperately to believe that my body could heal itself. And now it's about, it's not about that. It's about how, well, I don't even know if I can put it into words. I've never tried. It's sort of about how like this capacity for like love has always been in me.
Did you know, and have you listened to any of Tori Amos's songs about her miscarriages?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I couldn't name any of them, but I have.
Spark is one. And yeah, she was pretty public about what she was going through, which I think it's really important as an artist or like as a public figure to name what's happening to you, you know. So I think you're doing a great service to talk about infertility and then to talk about this struggle.
Thanks. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a really isolating thing, and you know, what I've learned just through performing is that when I am able and willing to be vulnerable and honest, that it just connects me more with people. People come up to me after the show and tell me their stories, and you know, and hold my hand, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Well, I think here's a really good place to end the interview. Thank you so much, Jane. This has just been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It's been a pleasure to talk to you too.
And there you have it. That's our conversation with Nora Jane Struthers, who is just the dang coolest. Thanks to Nora Jane Struthers for being on the show. Check out her latest album, Champion, wherever you get music. You could buy the vinyl. It's really very good. Thanks to you for listening to Basic Folk. Please subscribe and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you are listening on your podcasts. Thank you to Alexander Stanton of Townspeople for giving us the music for Basic Folk. Thanks to Janelle Gutierrez for helping me with my website, which you can visit, cindyhouse.net. Thank you to Laura McCarthy for your help with the podcast. And we'll see you next week. For real this time on Basic Folk. Thanks for listening. Bye.